Good morning, folks. How we doing? Today is the 10th day of April, 2024. It's Wednesday. It's about 9:30 in the morning. It's been a couple of days since I made a video for you. Deserves a bit of an explanation. Working on this thing right here, which is in the office now for my next door neighbor. She runs a daycare thing, and she's setting up a garden on the side of her house. And so I took some reclaimed wood, started working on it on Saturday, milled it all up, and started cutting sections to length. Took about 5 hours, and then Sunday I started putting it together. And then by Sunday afternoon, I couldn't walk. Yeah, so I've been dealing with that. I ordered some knee braces. They're coming today. And I contacted my doctor's office, who had taken x-rays of both my knees a month and a half ago and never heard back from them. And one of the doctors at the office took a look at them and said, you got to call orthopedics. So they're doing a referral for me for orthopedics. I've already done the injections for about 3.5 years now. So the injections really aren't doing much. There was nothing really terribly difficult. I wasn't working with fucking, railroad timbers or anything. Wasn't a whole lot of stress on the knee. It was just standing. And it wasn't like a 10-hour shift. It was 5 hours on Saturday and 3.5 on Sunday. But it was bad. So now I'm able to move around a bit. And what am I going to do today? I'm going to make 2 quick videos and get them posted up, and then take that thing back outside and finish working on it like the dumbass that I am. What's probably going to happen is I will have to have my knees replaced. Certainly one, if not both. And I don't know how that's going to work out or when that's going to work out, but it will work out, and hopefully there'll be a silver lining to this cloud of ours, of mine. It's gotten me motivated. And I realize, I still have, I have a number of skills and things that I can do, and I don't have to live like this. So I was trying to do AutoCAD, but it's coming back slowly. And even when AutoCAD does come back, I worked professionally as an AutoCAD draftsman. I had my own company for a while, but I was self-taught. And as big as AutoCAD 2004 was, which I was using all the way up, because that's the last one I bought, all the way up to 2007 and 8, maybe even into the teens. I think I was doing something. I tried to return to work and did some stuff in the teens. But the last project I did was 2015, I think. That was the not mortuary. That was the place where you bury dead people in crypts and things. Mausoleum. I was good enough to get stuff done, and I was good enough to do rough 3D models, but I wasn't, good enough. I couldn't have been certified, or I could have maybe been certified, but that was a long time ago. And AutoCAD has changed. And I might have used 10% of CAD, maybe 15 with the 3D stuff, back in the day. Today, what it is, it's going to take me a while. So maybe this is a quicker process to getting a path to getting me off disability and back on my feet, so to speak, on my fake knees. So we'll see what happens. But I'll keep you informed. But I am going to go back out there today. I got myself a little random orbital sander delivered, and I'm going to sand this thing down and make it look all nice and pretty for it. So that's today. Because, as that stupid fucking quote goes, I just keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. Anyway, 2 short videos. The first video is going to deal with Rand Paul and Anthony Fauci and Donald Trump and deliberate misinformation. There's a lot of deliberate misinformation. That's misinformation on the alt-right. I'll give you some misinformation on the alt-left, and that is the continual demonization of Recep Erdogan and his government in Turkey. Oh my God, he's the Sultan. He's stealing elections. He lost the last election, or his party lost the last election, and so they lost some control in their parliament. And they lost two important, well, not the parliament, but they lost two important mayorships in the two largest cities in Turkey, which does not bode well for AFK, or is that the APK or AFK, one of the party of Recep Erdogan. Turkey is a democracy. The prime minister disagrees openly with policies of Recep Erdogan, and is very vocal about it. In the alt-left community, there are a lot of folks out there who call him Sultan Erdogan, and that he's trying to recreate the Ottoman Empire or some shit, and that he's evil and he's killing his own people. The same bullshit that the alt-left thought leaders were pushing about. Slobodan Milosevic, and then Assad, and then of course Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein and anybody else they want to get rid of because they're inconvenient to the State Department. They always seem to err on the same side of the State Department, and then they come back later afterwards and after the damage is done, like old Captain Hindsight Max Blumenthal, and they, oh, well, yeah, that was a kind of a mistake, but we got to focus now on this next thing, and then focus on getting people to demonize certain individuals to make ready for regime change. That's how it works in the alt-left. In the alt-right, they seem to forget, as I'm going to show you in a few seconds, as they promote Donald Trump and they talk about how wonderful Donald Trump is, they seem to forget that Donald Trump put Fauci in charge. Donald Trump ignored the fact that it was Fauci's fucking agency that made SARS-CoV-2 in the first place. It was Fauci working for the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, which also had contracts with Moderna to make a year and a half prior to October of 2019. Moderna was created, and then they built a nice facility for them to make massive amounts of mRNA vaccines, quote-unquote vaccines. Almost as if the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, the Department of the Defense, had a plan in mind. And of course they had a plan in mind. Donald Trump ignored all of that. Donald Trump, to this day, claims that his glorious, quote-unquote vaccines saved 100 million lives. So if anyone thinks for 1 second, if you're going to call out fucking Anthony Fauci, you're going to call out Joe Biden, as right you should, as well you should, you can't forget fucking, Daddy Vax, Orange Daddy Vax, because he was certainly part and parcel of the whole problem, which of course people would have you forget. Also, while we're on the subject of little entitled Randy, Rand Paul, yeah, he calls out Fauci, and he had a scene with him in the House or wherever he was. Probably that was no, it was the Senate, because he's a senator. Of course, he's a senator because of Rand, because his father Ron. But he had a little scene with fucking Fauci where he was saying, I ordered all these things, these reports which aren't classified, and he pulls them out and he flips through them and they're all redacted. He goes, oh, they're all redacted. His conclusion that he drew was that they were redacted because for some reason they want to protect China because China made fucking SARS-CoV-2 at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. That's bullshit. Anthony Fauci made it under a fucking contract with EcoHealth Alliance in a place called the Lugar Center in Tbilisi, Georgia. And all you got to do is look down on the side of my thing, Lugar Center leaks, You'll find all the evidence of that you ever fucking need. They had an ancillary contract with Wuhan, just like they had ancillary contracts with the state of Jordan, the state of Georgia, not the state U.S., but the state and the nation of Georgia, and Azerbaijan, and I think 2 others, to send them bats that had novel coronaviruses that they could use to sample, and then they could do the gain-of-function research via EcoHealth Alliance and Ralph Barrett in North Carolina and at the Tbilisi Center, at the Lugar Center in Tbilisi, Georgia. Okay? And of course, little Rand Paul, little entitled Randy, would have you believe it was China that did it, when in fact it wasn't. They collected some bats from 1,000 miles away. They found the ones that had novel coronaviruses, but they did not do the gain-of-function research. They then sent the bats to Tbilisi, Georgia, the Lugar Center. And if you don't believe me, then you can go down on my website and look down the thing and say Lugar Center leaks. Pull up that, scroll down till you find the actual Lugar Center leaks that came from a Georgian fucking parliamentarian. And it'll show you the contracts, it'll show you the fucking paperwork, and there's a video where an English-speaking American working for EcoHealth Alliance is in Tbilisi, Georgia, sampling a bat that they got from fucking China to get the fucking novel coronavirus so they could do the fucking gain-of-function research on it there in Tbilisi, Georgia. There's literally a video showing them doing it. There's literally a video showing them doing it. What we got on one side of this argument is Rand Paul leafing through a bunch of blank pages saying China did it. And on the other side of the argument, you got me saying there's evidence right there. There's contracts, there's statements, and there's video of them making SARS-CoV-2 in the Lugar Center in Tbilisi, Georgia. Say what you will. But that's, again, we're talking about disinformation. I've shown you some disinformation on the left. Demonize fucking Erdogan, demonize fucking Ortega, demonize fucking anybody that the State Department wants to regime change in the minds of the fucking alt-left community. This is the same thing with the alt-right. They're demonizing China, okay, for what we did. Let me just go through real quickly some of this stuff for you. Here is Laura Ingraham. I don't know where she was and when she made the flip on the virus and on the vaccines. I don't know. Was she with us from the beginning, from day one? I don't know. But she's certainly capitalizing now. Let's have a listen to what Fauci said, and this is important stuff. Let's have a listen to what Fauci said about using business and schools to impose mandates that the government can't do. Now, if you recall, I talked about the SAGE folks in the UK. This was 7 months into COVID. It was still 2020. Trump was still in office. And I have a thing talking about the SAGE, SAGE folks over in fucking in the United Kingdom. And they were talking about the fact that they were laying out this process. They were laying out this program. They were saying, yes, our government's not going to allow for bodily autonomy to be violated by forcing jabs. What we got to do is we got to get big business to do it for us. We got to get these institutions to do it for us. And that's exactly what fucking Anthony Fauci is going to be explaining to you, because he took his lessons from, of course,
now, this newly resurfaced interview reveals what he really wanted out of all those COVID mandates.
Once people feel empowered and protected legally, you were going to have schools, universities, and colleges are going to say, you want to come to this college, buddy? You're going to get vaccinated. It's been proven that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bull and they get vaccinated.
This is absolutely, this is 2021 when it was published. Fauci was talking about this. So I'm telling you, this came from SAGE's plan. in 2020. And I talked about it in 2020. Here's an article I wrote March 30th. Oh, look, they're starting to figure it out. A little entitled, Randy and Bill Maher have figured out that there's been something rotten in Denmark for some time now. Yep, there's always been an agenda hiding behind the imposition of mRNA fake vaccines, and folks are just now coming to that conclusion. Too late, though, since the next one, once-in-a-century pandemic, is right around the corner. This was I wrote this on the March the 30th, 2024. You can go look at that, and I believe there's videos. You can, if you click on this, you can. There's going to be videos of both Bill Maher and little entitled Randy talking about this. Here's an article, Fauci's Inquisition Against Safe and Effective Anti-COVID-19 Drugs. This is a study done by Dr. Gary Null and Richard Gale. It's posted over at Global Research. It talks about the fact that they put all these bullshit studies together. They threw out all these bullshit studies, starting in 2021, to try to claim that these effective drugs, safe and effective drugs, wouldn't work. And then they handed those studies over to the propaganda assets, like, Stephen Colbert and others, who made fun of people, who even wondered out loud about the other studies that were taking place all across the world showing the effectiveness of ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. Now they know. Now the FDA has finally come out and said, yeah, ivermectin does work. Hydroxychloroquine does work. Gee, I wish we knew sooner. They did know. They knew from the beginning. They lied. Just like the masks, just like social distancing, they lied. Just like the vaccine's going to stop the fucking infection. The infection stops. Remember Rachel Maddow? The infection stops. She put her hand up there for dramatic effect. The infection stops when you get the vaccine. You don't carry it. You don't catch it. You don't carry it. You don't transmit it. You don't get sick from it. You don't die from it. All lies. And they knew they were all lies. Every single one of them knew it was a lie. Rachel, say what you will about Rachel Maddow. Her IQ is better than yours, is off the charts. She is a very bright individual. She's not that dumb. She's smart enough to know what side her bread is buttered on. This is a good article. Go take a look at this. This is from Chief Nerd. I got issues with Chief Nerd. I'll tell you about that in a second. New study shows Paxlovid does nothing when it comes to COVID. Nothing. Zero. Zip. It does absolutely nothing when it comes to fucking COVID-19. Protecting you from COVID-19. It is the same as doing nothing. It is the same as placebo. And yet it costs $1,300. So what exactly does it do? Because it does something other than just cost $1,300.
Paxlovid, once considered a wonder drug to beat back COVID-19, may not be so mighty after all. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine on Wednesday suggests the antiviral drug does little or nothing for both fully vaccinated or unvaccinated people who have at least one risk factor for severe COVID.
That's New England Journal of Medicine, not the Alex Jones show. That's the New England Journal of Medicine. It does nothing.
It did little to shorten the duration of symptoms. It is still unclear as to Paxlovid's impact on patients 65 years and older, as that group only accounted for under 6% of the study subjects. Participants recorded daily symptom severity on a 4-point scale. 0 was absent, 1 was mild, 2 moderate, and 3 severe. The included symptoms were cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, feeling feverish, had chills or shivering, muscle or body aches, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, headache, sore throat, and stuffy or runny nose.
Adults who had confirmed COVID-19 with symptom onset in the past 5 days were randomly assigned with Paxlovid or placebo to take every 12 hours for 5 days. Patients who were fully vaccinated against COVID and patients who had never been vaccinated against COVID were eligible for participation in the study. Now, kind of shocking that a drug that costs $1,300 for a 5-course is showing in a randomized controlled trial to not really relieve COVID symptoms. That's a lot of money to pay for something that
does nothing.
Provenly doesn't work, it seems.
Does nothing. And the FDA knew this when they approved it. Now here we are, we're going to talk about this one. This is why we're here to start with. Rand Paul tells the truth about Fauci while forgetting who appointed him in the first place. This is written by Chief Nerd. Senator Rand Paul says Fauci should be in jail for lying to Congress and the American people. I've sent 2 referrals to the Department of Justice. I think he lied to Congress, which is a felony. Several folks from the Trump administration were accused of lying to Congress and carted off to jail with FBI agents all over their property. We have 2 tiers of justice here, ... In that ... what he left out was the fact that he says those who side with Trump and those who side with the establishment. He forgets Anthony Fauci did lie to Congress, but Anthony Fauci was appointed by Trump and kept in place by Trump until Trump left. Virtually everything he said in private contradicted what he said in public, and I showed you some of that. I love how Rand Paul forgets. This is what I wrote. I love how Rand Paul forgets it was Trump who put Fauci in charge in the first place. It was Trump who enacted Operation Warp Speed to get out as many experimental jabs in people's arms as fast as possible before the truth came out about them. And it's Trump who says he still says he saved 100 million lives with those fake vaccines. Both Rand Paul and Chief Nerd seem to forget those tidbits of details, or at least they seem to want you to forget them, but we won't. But in all fairness, it is worth having a listen to what he says about Fauci.
Everything they blamed the right on, vaccine hesitancy, not trusting government officials, the loss of trust in government, I told them over and over again, and I still continue to tell them, it is at their feet. It's not at those of us who said, well, maybe we should examine individually whether older people might benefit from the vaccine versus younger people who might not need it, or whether or not people who've already been infected may not need to be vaccinated again, or maybe people don't need 3 or 4 vaccines if they've already been infected. None of these questions were ever answered, but the more they came out with things that weren't believable, like that your 6-month-old needs 3 vaccines, or your 12-year-old needs 3 vaccines, even if they've had COVID, and that none of the studies included the variable of whether you have had COVID. So they would do these large studies and compare booster to no booster, and they couldn't show that it stopped transmission because it doesn't. And for kids and teenagers and young people, they couldn't show that it reduced hospitalization or death because it didn't, because these kids were rarely going to the hospital. So then they came up with, they said, well, if we vaccinate your kid 3 times, they make antibodies.
But Rand,
I mean, it wasn't
Senator,
proof of anything.
It was all, yeah.
Yeah, she interrupts him at a very interesting point. They had to change the fucking narrative. They had to change the fucking justification. They said, well, if you give your kid fucking, all these jabs of this booster, they'll make antibodies, and you, the parents living with them, you will get the antibodies from your kids. You'll turn your children into little anti-COVID machines. So that even though the fact is that kids almost, it was 0.0000095% of the ones who caught fucking COVID ended up even being hospitalized from it. There was no fucking, and it was, 2% of them ended up having problems from the fucking vaccines themselves. So you do the math on that. But the justification, when the truth came out, the justification they tried to come up with is, let's spin it this way. These coward fucking parents who are forcing these jabs and these boosters on their children, let's hit them with this. Let's tell them what they'll do is it'll promote the kid making antibodies, and then you can get the antibodies. You're turning your kid into you're turning your kid into an air purifier system. That's what they were trying to say. That is despicable. That is absolutely fucking despicable. And some people fell for it.
Senator, they were lying, and the lying had real consequences for children, their mental health, their education, for business,
their health,
for our faith, not being able to go to houses of worship. That's fundamental American freedoms. And I'll ask you again, what should the consequences be for Anthony Fauci?
Jail. Prison. I've sent 2 referrals to the Department of Justice. I think he lied to Congress, which is a felony. Several folks from the Trump administration were accused of lying to Congress and carted off to jail with FBI agents all over the property, yanking them out of their house early in the morning. But we have two tiers of justice here. It depends on whether you were a supporter of Donald Trump or you're a supporter of big government.
Big government. That's two tiers of justice for you. Were you a supporter of Donald Trump or a supporter of big government? Donald Trump made him. Donald Trump put him in office. Donald Trump made him the most highly paid fucking public servant in the history of fucking public servants in this country. Donald Trump made him Lord God Emperor Fauci. Lord God Emperor Rona. Donald Trump made him. And then Donald Trump took the fucking military's advice, took the Department of Defense's advice, and put a bunch of money into Operation Warp Speed so they could use the military to get these jabs in as many arms as possible before all of the fucking lies were exposed. Before, it wasn't just the fucking lies. You have to remember, this is a fucking coronavirus. This is something that kids did make antibodies to, in spite of the fucking jabs. Not with the help of the jabs, in spite of the jabs. Had there been no fucking lockdowns, had there been no keeping kids out of school, had there been no face masks, had there been no social distancing, COVID-19 might have lasted as a flu-type variant for 8 months, if that long. If a different type of cold breaks out and they impose, this is what people don't think about. It wasn't just the fucking lies. It wasn't just keeping people from getting ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine. It wasn't just imposing the jabs on people through universities and schools and fucking certainly businesses. It wasn't just all of that. It wasn't demonization of nurses and doctors and healthcare professionals and immunologists and people who said, we're doing this the wrong way. Something's wrong here. It wasn't just all of that, but all of that does factor in. But the choices they fucking made, one of the first things I said about this was they're doing this to protect the virus, not the fucking people. If they did this with a common cold variation today, you would have the same, and then they lied about the fucking numbers. The way they lied, you died with something, that means you died of that something. You know what I'm talking about. If they did that today with the common cold, you could turn the common cold into the next Black Plague. You don't need something that big if you have that machinery in place. You understand? All of these things were done to protect the fucking virus. They needed the virus to get past things like digital IDs, to get people accustomed to vaccine passports, to get people accustomed to these ideas. Oh, I've been given the jab, so I can come into this fucking establishment. They needed people to submit, which is what the masks were about. But the masks were also about generating fear. You see everybody out in the fucking street driving in their little cars all by themselves with a fucking mask on. You're like, oh my God, there's something terrible going on out here. It's about fear. It's about fear and about submitting to the power, to something that was absolutely idiotic. Everyone should know that trying to protect yourself from a coronavirus, an airborne coronavirus with a fucking surgical mask, is tantamount to trying to catch minnows with a whale net. It's just fucking stupid. But God forbid you said that on YouTube, you would get banned. The whole thing was about protecting the virus and allowing the virus to continue until they got the fucking jabs in people. That's why that's why Donald Trump had to push out their Operation Warp Speed. They needed the fucking virus to last long enough to get the jabs in as many arms as possible. That's a fact. That's just a fucking fact. And this was not something that was done by accident. It was not something that was done by oversight. It was something done on purpose. This was designed. It was designed by during Event 201 by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation at Johns Hopkins University. It was designed by fucking Defense Threat Reduction Agency. It was designed by the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, headed up by Anthony Fauci. It was designed by SAGE guys over in fucking the United Kingdom. This was by design. It was all by design. And the side effects from these fucking jabs, which, we still don't know to this day, legitimately, what the jabs were ever meant to do. We don't. Because they didn't stop the infection. They didn't slow the infection. They didn't prevent you from carrying it, from catching it, from giving it to somebody else, from getting sick from it, and from dying from it. They did none of that. They did none of that. Just like Paxlovid. None of it. So what the fuck were they? They weren't just a money-making machine. They could have done that any number of ways. There's something that they were designed for. There's something that they're doing. The question is, what? Donald Trump is no more innocent when it comes to COVID-19 than Joe Biden is. Than Nancy Pelosi is. Than fucking Anthony Fauci is. The buck stops on his desk. And anybody who tells you otherwise is deliberately misleading you. Especially if that individual has a history of telling you, it was made by China, who's our enemy right now and the enemy of our fucking unipolar state. It was made by China and not by Anthony Fauci and EcoHealth Alliance and Ralph Barrick in Tbilisi, Georgia at the Lugar Center. And if you don't believe me, go down there, go to my website, scroll down there, find Lugar Center leaks. Look through a couple of those until you find the video of them actually making it and doing the fucking gain of function research. It's there. All you got to do is look. Anyway, so I'm going to do a short video after this one, talking about some updates on Gaza, and that's going to be it for me. And then I'm out in the fucking yard again. Hopefully, my knee braces will get here. I'm going next week. I do the orthopedics guys and or gals, whoever they may be. I hope it's the same woman who did my thumb, my finger. I feel bad. She was very attractive, and she's in her 30s, and surgeon, and she was talking about how she's going to do my finger. I broke my finger walking my dog, and I stepped half on and half off a step, and I fell and caught myself and broke my finger. And I was in her office, and she was taking the bandage and the stuff off, and I had all these screws. I mean, like screws sticking out of my fucking hand. And it was swollen, and I had to put a whole new fucking mechanism in there, right? I can't straighten it out. See that one? See, it's not straight. See, it's bent. But she took it off, and I looked at it, and she looked at me, and I said, "Oh my God, I'm a freak." I thought it was cute and endearing. She didn't find the humor in that whatsoever. She had somebody else take the screws out eventually. I'm so good with the opposite sex. I really am. Anyway, I will talk to you guys later. I think this thing's gone on for so long. I'll make the other video if I survive the sanding process, because I got to get out there and get started on this. So that'll be later this afternoon. We'll see if I can upload this, and I'm gonna put this on YouTube, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get a strike for it. So we'll see how that goes, but I won't be that upset. Anyway, I thank you guys for your time. I'm sorry it's been a couple of days, but I'm back. I'll be all right. I'll talk to you.